tractor power.
I can't think of an easier way to get a transmission out. Can you?
No.
Okay, so the 4 bolts you're going to want to get off to take that back universal. 2 on top here, 2 on the bottom in this case. Put your engine in park so that the drive shaft doesn't spin. That's if you have it jacked up. If you don't, you know, you could be rotating the back wheels a bit, so it's always a good idea to block your wheels. If your truck is as old as this one, you're probably going to have to pry these out once you get done, like so. Okay, so this truck has a 2-piece rear drive shaft. If you have a 1-piece, this doesn't apply. All you simply do is unbolt your hanger bracket. The nuts are up in here. There's a nut and a bolt that goes through this cross member. In my case, I'm not reusing it, so I just chopped it with the Sawzall and dropped it down. Last thing here on the Chevys, they got the sliding yoke. On these, different cars are different. Sometimes this is bolted on, but regardless of the procedure, just pull that out. Now you're going to lose a bunch of fluid if you have it topped up here. Okay, tranny lines are next. These are obviously disconnected from the radiator already, but they go along the bottom and they're just a pain. So 11/16, put that on wrong. Okay, 11/16 to hold the back. Now these are flare wrenches. They're made for doing this kind of tubing. If you don't have them, you can almost get away with a regular one. These just have more points of contact, so they tend to slip less. If they're really rusty, this could be a problem. And if you had poor access, but these aren't so bad. Just by looking at them, you can see they're going to spin okay. Nothing to it. Rear transmission mount. This one's been fabricated, not by me, but somebody, and it's basically 2 bolts. It's kind of weird. Obviously, this transmission is not the right one for the engine, or there was something missing here, but the mount is located right here. It's got 1 bolt that goes down. It should be into the cross member. You can also, if you got access, pull the mount off of the actual transmission case, but I wouldn't recommend that. Those tend to be in there pretty good. 2 bolts going up on either side right here. This is your kickdown cable. So when you stomp on it, it downshifts. Okay, that goes up to the carburetor bracket. You just unclip it and squeeze these and pull it through the mount. Okay, so normally there's an inspection plate here. It's usually made out of tin. Pretty thin, held on with bolts that go into the housing here and up here. This one's gone. God knows where that thing went. I know they did make plastic ones there for a few years, so maybe it's just gone, but I don't even see bolts. So this one hasn't had one. Okay, I don't know, well, you can see this torque converter located right here. All right, as you can see, no inspection plate, so it's rusty as hell. It's sitting in the ground. Little tiny bolts, 3 of them, connects the torque converter to your flex plate. That's not a flywheel. Flywheels are standards. And once that's done, you can just kind of pry it like so, and then the gap will open up and you can see the torque converter spinning freely. That lets you know you're all done. Okay, so you got 1 wiring harness that comes out there. I already pulled it out when I ripped the cab off. Dipstick tube will come when you take these bolts out. All right, last bolts we got to deal with are the transmission case to the engine block. Bell housing bolts are referred to as. Okay, We've got 6 of them, 2 here, 2 exact same on the opposite side. You can see right here is a dowel pin hole. Okay, so that's to help you line up the case when you're putting these bolts in. Then you got 2 more bolts, 1 here and 1 over there. So 3 on this side, 3 in the same spot on the other side. Some of the Pontiacs and that and Oldsmobiles had a different pattern, but okay, one thing I should mention as a safety note, most times you're probably not tearing a transmission out on an old wreck like this in the backyard where you can rip the body off. So you're going to be doing this from underneath. You're going to need to support the motor and transmission. All right. Right now you've got the motor mounts up front, the transmission mount at the back, all sitting on cross members. Things are holding in place and deceptively easy. Once you separate this transmission from the bell housing, the motor mounts are way up front on a small block. All that weight at the back is going to want to drop. Transmission is going to try to do the same. It's going to drop this way as well. Okay, so you're going to want to support things. Don't put a jack right underneath the oil pans on the transmission or the engine because you can bend them. If you do have to do it, use a thick piece of wood. This 3/4 inch plywood that I cut up just for these jobs. All right, it sits under the oil pan between the jack and the pan. You jack it up and it distributes the pressure, so less chance of things bending, let's say. Okay, 700 R4 is out, sitting here beside me on the frame. Wasn't that hard, I just pulled it out by hand. Torque converter's over there on the wheel. All right, if you lean it forward, that will fall out, so try to keep the bell housing up. Hey, all I did was grab onto the old tailstock, wiggle it left and right violently for a few seconds, and pop, out she came. If you're doing it carefully, it'll stay on the dowels. You can see the gap start to open. So make sure you got your jack supporting it there. That's all I did. Pull it back, grab the bell housing, rotate it around here on the frame like it is, then I yank the torque converter out. Okay, you can see the motor's leaned back quite a bit now because it hasn't got the transmission support in the rear. You can see the motor mounts up there way up front. So it's very off balance without a transmission, which is why I say to support it. If you're doing it in the engine, and I made this mistake, the support wasn't good enough and it dropped, you're going to snap up your distributor cap on the firewall most likely, and possibly break off the distributor itself. It's not made to support an engine, it's aluminum. So if you're worried about it, you can take out your distributor. That's a whole different process I'm not getting into, but be aware that that can happen if you don't have it blocked right. This of course is for my super secret winter project. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.